Overwatch 2 is finally making a comeback.
I think we've entered a new golden age of Overwatch.
The game right now is in the best state it has been in since the game literally launched.
It's nice to see all that they're doing right now, which I think is good.
However, is this comeback enough to make up for years of disappointment? Overwatch's main gameplay loop has become stagnant. In other class-based shooters, characters serve as groundwork to create your own playstyle, built around your own strengths and weaknesses. Meanwhile, in Overwatch, each character represents a different playstyle useful in very specific situations. If you run into one of your counters, you are meant to switch to a different hero, aka different playstyle to gain the upper hand. However, since there isn't any overlap in between character playstyles, whether you get to play your favorite playstyle, which only one single hero can offer, is entirely dependent on the enemy composition and if they have an advantage against your hero. Hard counters and the hero switching philosophy turn the game stagnant, and the developers are aware of this, since over the years they have tried different half measures to mitigate this issue, with the newest addition being perks. Perks serve as the most promising half measure so far. They add some much needed freshness to the roster, from simple stat buffs to entirely new abilities. The logic behind them is simple: reward committing to a single hero by allowing them tools that round out their biggest weaknesses. For example, close quarter heroes can opt for a slight range increase. Low mobility characters can invest in movement options. Perks aren't meant to completely cover your flaws, but they can give you just enough of an edge to make those unfavorable matchups at least bearable. It's a promising system that could strengthen the foundation of the game. However, as it stands, it also showcases a lack of commitment coming from the Overwatch team. Perks are tied to a leveling system where your performance determines how fast you unlock them, but I find this to be an arbitrary limitation that doesn't add to the quality of the match. It doesn't matter how effectively perks protect me from my counters if I'm still forced to endure through unfair matchups for most of the match before I unlock them. In an ironic twist, hero switching has become even more encouraged, because changing your character lane into the game means losing all of your perks. So most of the time, it's better to hero switch at the beginning of the round instead of leveling up and unlocking your perks. This is assuming that every character has useful perks you can take advantage of, since in reality the Overwatch team has always been notorious for its poor balance, and the fact that perks vary wildly from turning you unstoppable to borderline useless has only confirmed our suspicions. We have already established that hero switching is an unintuitive mechanic, so I think it would be worth it to experiment going all in on this new feature. I am curious to how a game of Overwatch would go if hero switching was removed entirely and perks were chosen right at the beginning of a match. But on the other hand, the developers already tested multiple different iterations of unlocking perks, probably including this one, so take my suggestion with a grain of salt. Nevertheless, this is an undeniably huge improvement, and I really enjoy the path which is being taken. A lot of people think the recent success of Seasons 15 and 16 was a quickly developed countermeasure to Marvel Rivals' rise in popularity. Competition is extremely important because it ensures evolution. However, no matter how you put it, you can't develop these kinds of large features for a AAA game available in 6 different platforms in a matter of 3 months. Game development at this level is an extremely slow and complicated process, and you can't materialize 2 entire seasons worth of content from one day to another. Perks had been in development for 6 months, and alongside the biggest game mode Overwatch has seen up to date.
Welcome to the stadium. You can't go wrong with all-star rosters like these. Let the games begin.
This has been my dream ever since I first played Overwatch. Suddenly, my eyes opened to an infinite amount of potential in characters which I initially found dull and repetitive. Reinhardt is the best example of this. You can sharpen his close quarters power, or build into a ranged area of the Nile playstyle. You can turn him into a defensive support, or even fully lean into dive. A hero never loses their core essence, but you can adapt it to fit your unique way of problem solving. If you're a generalist and can quickly adapt to any matchup, an all-rounded build will make you consistently more deadly. Alternatively, if there is a specific aspect of a character in which you exceed in, you can invest everything into it. Reaper can buff his own ult and channel a fraction of its power at a time, or you can completely forget D.Va's mech and focus solely on buffing her human form. Stadium matches are first to 4, with each round taking on average 3 to 4 minutes, and to construct your character build, you need to earn stadium currency through multiple statistics. So a stadium match could turn into an exceedingly long snowball if one team takes the upper hand early on, but the bounty system ensures a reward for punishing overperforming individuals. So playing your cards right means your economy can catch up in a single round. Additionally, if the difference in skill is too large, a mercy rule ensures the game will end earlier than expected. In theory, Stadium allows for an unlimited amount of skill expression, but reality is quite different. Overwatch has always been an extremely punishing game, but Stadium takes that to new heights. There should be a lot of room for creativity, but creating any kind of all-rounded build means you won't keep up with the ridiculous amounts of sustained damage that the entire roster builds up over time, meaning that trying to diverge even a little bit from the most optimal strategies will place you at a significant disadvantage. And since Stadium rounds are smaller by default compared to regular Overwatch rounds, making a single mistake in a single team fight is just enough to earn the enemy team an easy point. Stadium is by far the least casual friendly iteration of Overwatch, and needs to be taken with 100% seriousness if you want to have any kind of fun. However, that same competitiveness inherent to the mode is contradicted by ridiculous balance decisions. As it stands, the most optimal Stadium builds are ones that take a single aspect of a kit and make it so fundamentally game-breaking that no amount of skill is able to circumvent it. That could be building into aimbot and instant cooldowns and one-shots. The most notorious example being Juno's torpedo build, which allows her to output the most amount of damage and healing out of any other player present in the lobby, while not requiring a single thought beyond pushing a button. Stadium also discourages any kind of build counterplay by not offering affordable debuff items that allow you to react to your opponent's playstyle, and the ones that do exist are so incredibly expensive that you are probably better off just mindlessly pumping your stats up. Overwatch director Aaron Keller has recently expressed that the team wishes to keep Stadium, quote-unquote, casually competitive. Some people have praised Blizzard's vision for Stadium, but I find it confusing. The term casually competitive is a complete contradiction in itself. You can't reliably keep a competitive audience satisfied while still retaining these kinds of relaxed design decisions. A large part of the community has already expressed that they are confused as to who Stadium was made for. The balance decisions present in the mode clash with its marketing as the newest competitive Overwatch experience, and the current ranking system somehow managed to leave competitive players unsatisfied while still scaring casual players who just want to have fun. Blizzard has to decide what they want Stadium to be. They won't be able to balance for both a casual and competitive audiences without alienating both of them. Overwatch as a whole has been a casually competitive game from the beginning, and it's taken us years upon years to reach a semi-balanced state where both the casual and competitive communities are satisfied enough. Starting over with a new game mode is not the right call in the slightest. This isn't to say that Stadium shouldn't be a fun, goofy mode, but let's take a step back from developing purposely broken power-ups for the sake of it. This kind of indecisiveness has been Overwatch's main issue for the last few years. Blizzard has published so many new game modes and then proceeded to scrap them a few years later, either because they didn't bother to complete their vision or simply because they didn't really have one in the first place. Hero Mastery used to take Stadium's place in the menu as a main game mode. It was marketed as the ultimate test of mechanical skill, which adds endless replayability to every hero. Except Hero Mastery as a concept directly clashes with every single one of Blizzard's decisions to remove any kind of mechanical depth to the game, which basically meant that this mode was dumped down to a couple of courses in which you slowly walk around and have to follow an extremely specific path to get the legendary 5-star rating, save for a few exceptions. As soon as the player base expressed frustration to how limited and boring Hero Mastery as a mode felt, Blizzard jumped ship and left it incomplete. Funnily enough, the Hero Mastery failure is the perfect spiritual sequel to the PvE campaign fiasco. We were promised an extensive story mode filled with unique interactions in between the characters we've grown to love, an extremely dynamic enemy roster, hundreds of missions which you could replay endlessly, a talent system even more complex compared to the Stadium Forge, and in the end, we only got an extremely small fraction of that sold to us at the price of a full game. The story campaign felt so plain since it was merely the beginning of what could have been a revolutionary adventure. It was clear that the characters we played as weren't designed for this specific type of PvE environment, and thus the entire mode felt like Overwatch's archive missions all over again, this time with a $15 price tag. Who would have thought that the player base wouldn't want to interact with it? And even before the PvE disappointment, we had the workshop. I used to love the workshop. It gave the community all of the tools required to design game modes which delivered on what Blizzard failed to accomplish. It had the biggest potential out of any mode up to date, and instead, Blizzard chose to abandon it, leaving it as a broken mess with commands that don't work, an extremely bug-filled interface, and no compatibility with Overwatch 2's new features. Had Blizzard kept supporting the workshop, we probably could have had infinite experiences beyond our imagination. We could have kept creating our campaigns, our own hero mastery courses, our own custom competitive rebalances, and now I can't even create a public lobby unless I'm endorsement level 3. Back at BlizzConline 2021, we were promised 5 games in 1, and today I feel disappointment when I see that 3 out of those 5 games turned out as incomplete, broken, overpriced mistakes. However, the latest content drops have all been very high quality, and I feel like Overwatch as a whole is slowly moving in a very good direction. I personally still can't cope with what this game could have been had it not been tampered with by the Blizzard higher-ups. I don't really express the same positivity that the entire community is currently feeling, so a lot of you will probably disagree with my way of looking at the current state of the franchise. That's fine. Whether Overwatch is entering a new golden age or is still in the same soulless state as before is merely up to you to decide. But I encourage everyone to remember that we have been in the same cycle of hope followed by depression for a long time. And while I do agree that this time might be different, this could very well just be another calm moment before one more storm. So no matter what, don't forget the past. Thank you for watching and see you next month.